Hello, it's Sandy, and I'm back again today to share with you some important things that I walked away with when I quilted my very first quilt using my Babylock Solaris 3 and the edge-to-edge feature of the machine. I had to stitch out 20 hoops of fabric, and while doing so, I learned so much, and I jotted down some important things I wanted to share and keep in mind for the next time I do this. So I have 4 videos. I'll put a link to the first one about here because I went over in video 1 how to set up the machine and with notions and how I plugged in the size, the dimensions of the quilt, etc. And then 2 was where I stitched out the first 2 hoops of the top row. Um, Video 3 was stitching out the last 3 hoops of the top row. And video 4 was stitching out the last 4 hoops of the bottom row. I figured those videos would be good to share because you're lining up different parts of the quilt in different ways. And now this video is just a summary of what I thought was some of the most important things to remember. So we'll just get started. The first thing I wanted to cover was this top left edge. So when you're in the machine, and I can actually show you how to get to that screen, go into embroidery, press the pocket where you have saved your design, assuming you've already done that, and then pressing that 20, which shows you the guided process. It'll take you through the guided process when you press that first button and press set. So because I've hooped my quilt, my completed quilt, in a way that I can share this with you, I'm going to share this part with you on the screen. Some of it on the screen, some of it off the screen. So it shows that it wants us to begin our sewing from the upper left corner of the fabric and make sure to attach the embroidery frame in the initial sewing position. And what that means is you got to make sure you've got enough batting outside of the top part of the quilt so that the hoop can grab onto that fabric correctly. So I left a lot of batting outside the top of my quilt, but I made sure that I was about an inch and a half out, inch and a half or 2 outside the fabric itself, the top part on the top and bottom. So that was inside the embroidery screen. So that's the first thing I just thought it would be good to go over. Then this is my personal preference, is when I go to the next screen, it's actually going to ask me to, or remind me in the instruction screen, to line up the quilt with the machine's red laser lights. And so what I was thinking after I did all of the quilting was that, just to let you know, I used paper tape along the edge because I got tired of the fraying. And I didn't do it up here because it took me a while to actually realize that was bothering me. So I like using the paper tape. It seemed to hold things down during the whole process, and it worked for me. I also used the temporary adhesive spray to glue down my top to the batting and my back to the batting. There's a separate video somebody else made that I watched to learn how to do that, and I can put that in my description if anybody's interested. But for now, what I walked away was with, yes, I could do that. I could tape it down all the way around. But I watched a video after I was completely done with the quilt, and I saw someone that did not do, actually, they did glue it down. They did tape it down, and it still got caught in the tape. So even if you have tape, you have to make sure it's secure and that it stays down. So after thinking about that, I know that when I was doing this quilt, I didn't go right at the edge. I went right inside. But next time I do this, I might remeasure it so that I start measuring from about a half an inch or an inch in, and just do that all, line up the red laser lights so that it's an inch in from the side and from the top. Because my preference is that I wouldn't mind if it started sewing from that point out, started doing the quilting, and not take the chance of it going over the edge and getting caught and bending the needle arm. I don't want to take that chance. So that's what I'm going to do next time. So that's the first thing I wanted to cover on this part of the quilt process. So now the next part is when it prompts us to align the last point of stitching to the beginning of the where it will stitch in the next hoop. So I'm going to advance the screen till I get to that far. And actually I have it hooped over in hoop 2 out of 20. This is 1, this is 2. And I did that just so that I could train on this part and share with you. I'm going to get past these initial screens so that I can get to that hoop. So I'm advancing it until I get there. And I'll show you that next. So here I am now. It's thinking about going to the next hoop. It's telling me, please rehoop the fabric to the right while including the right edge of the pattern on the left in the hoop. So this is where we lift, in my case, we lift the top of the hoop, we pull the fabric through, and we try to align the last point of stitching to where it's going to start stitching in the next new hoop, in this hoop, because you want those two to join. And so I watched a video after I completed my quilt about a person who had a Babylock hoop, and I wanted to share that with you because I thought about it. I thought, could I have done that with my hoop? But I decided no, I couldn't, for very good reasons. In my case, I'll go over this hoop first, and I'll try to explain this though because it does get confusing. This is where the machine is left off after I've completed the last run of stitching. And just pretend, let's put a little piece of tape here. This is where the stitching left off. I have to get actually no, that's wrong. Just say this is where the stitching is left off. I have to lift my hoop, pull the fabric through, and make sure I'm about right here, because that's from my experience where the fabric needs to be. Pull this through, and so that it will, the little tape mark will be about right here, and then it should be able to match up after I press OK. So what I've been doing is doing that now because I've got the machine instructions over here. I have not pressed OK. When I press OK, the whole hoop will move way over to the left. And as you can see, I need that room to move the hoop. Like even if I try to do, I'll show you in a little bit what I mean exactly. So this is what will happen. I move it through and it's a little bit more cumbersome. And I'm eyeballing about where it needs to be, about right there. I'm not going to rehoop totally and get it secure because I'm just trying to make sure I got it close to the area where I need it to be lined up. So I am rehooping before I press OK. So now I'm going to press OK, but watch the hoop. So now it moves over, and now I can actually use the keys on the right to align the left mark with the right beginning. And that will be easy. It worked out for me. But say I have a Babylock hoop. This is what a person with a Babylock hoop was doing. I'll tell you a little bit about the Babylock hoop. I have a 10 by 10 Babylock hoop, and it's got these gizmos, the magnetic pieces that get pushed to the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. And what they do, when the carriage is in the middle, instead of waiting like I did, pulling the fabric through, getting it all set up, lined up here, and pressing OK, and then having the carriage move over, what they're doing is bypassing those instructions quick, moving the carriage over right here, then lifting these things. They take off these two things on the side, on each side. They take off the big magnet on the top and the bottom, so you've just got this part left on the top and the bottom. So they can afford to just pull it through because it's sliding. When they do it, the fabric is kind of sliding underneath these magnets. They don't have to lift this big arm up to get the fabric through. When you have a Babylock hoop, you're just sliding the fabric along. So there is an advantage to using a Babylock hoop when doing this process because you don't have to raise up the big hoop. But there's also an advantage to using the big hoop because I only have a 10 by 10. This one is, what is it? It's 10 and 5/8 by 16, so I was able to quilt a lot more fabric in this hoop. So to me, after I did this a couple of times, I got used to knowing about where it needed to be pulled through, and I didn't mind just leaving the carriage here, the foot here, moving the fabric through after I lifted this part up, and then, aligning it, pressing it okay at that point, having the foot move over after I move the fabric through. So the Babylock person would advance it first, then pull the fabric through because they can just slide the fabric along with a lighter magnet. Now, this is the other thing, is if I did advance that before I pulled the fabric through, say I have to get to this point over here, say I've stitched this out and I need to move on to the next one. If I've already advanced, pressed OK past the instructions, and I try to lift my hoop, I can't clear it easily. So it's a lot more cumbersome to me. I just prefer to, I guess I could get used to doing it that way, but I just felt like I needed the space. So I didn't follow that type. I wouldn't follow that type of instruction. Maybe after I get better at this, but personally, I like to have more space when I'm pulling the fabric through. So that's the next thing I wanted to cover. Now the next one is aligning the top mark. And I don't have this really in there good, so I'll just make it a little tighter. I'm going to press OK. So it's saying to use the rotate keys to adjust the angle of the pattern while keeping an eye on the points around the pattern. So it's saying, from this point, is everything squared up still? And if not, use the angle keys. So this screen is telling me an instruction. The whole thing won't move until I press OK. Once I do, it moves to the area where I need to focus. So that's the thing to remember, is that these instructions are telling you what to do. It's not really doing anything else but showing you a picture of what you need to do. When you press OK, it takes you to the screen where you actually do the work. And now from this point down, I can see I'm way out of whack because I rehooped it and I wasn't really paying attention. So I need to move that down probably 10%. It's the first time that I actually use that button. And then I'll get it aligned up there. So that's better to me. But you would align it from your real point. I don't have this hooped right because I was trying to demo this point. But you would line it from here using the angle buttons. You would just make sure that when you use the angle buttons, you're at your right marking here. So that's that point. And that's the big thing I wanted to cover, was just making sure you understood that each screen is a screen of instructions. The carriage doesn't really move to the point where you need to focus until after you press OK. So that's that part. So now my next point is, what if I'm in the middle of this 20 quilt edge to edge process and I only want to stitch out 4 hoops, and I stitch them out. You have to make sure that you stitch out each hoop, and then I want to turn off my machine and come back to it in the morning. How do I do that so I can restart my edge to edge quilting process? There is something in the book at the very end. There's one small blurb. I didn't really find anything out there on YouTube land. It might be there. I didn't see it. But I wanted to share that with you because I thought that was one of the biggest things that I took away, was just learning how to do that, because this is a small quilt. It's only 42 by 54 or something like that. You know, for somebody who has a king size or a queen size quilt, they will definitely not do this in one day. So they're going to have to come back to it. And this is how a person would do that. So I'm going to show you that next. Let's pretend I stopped after 3. This is quilted out. I would normally want to advance through to 4, but I'm too tired. I'm going to turn off my machine. So let's do that. I'm going to press the home button and just pretend like I did that. Now I need to get to hoop 4 because that's where I want to start again. Or say if I turned off my machine, you'd go back to the memory pocket. You press embroidery, then you go to the pocket. You press the first design or the edge to edge, just the design that you saved. Then you press the first one that shows the 20 hoop guided process and press set. It's wanting to start at the first hoop, but we don't want to do that. We don't want to have to forward through 100 screens to get to the 4th hoop. We just want to get there and start stitching out our edge to edge quilting. So I'm going to press OK just to get past the next 4 screens to get to the area where I need to plug in where I want to start in hoop 4. So I'm going to press OK. And when you do that, the next time I press it, the hoop's going to move. It will move again. And again. And one more time. Now I'll take you to the screen. So down here, there's the needle minus plus. I'm going to press that. Down here is segment. I'm hoping you can see that. 1/20. So here's where if I press the right side, it will advance it to the next segment. These segments are really the rehoopings. I'm going to get to 4, and I'm going to press OK. Now I'm at hoop 4, and the machine instructions start again right over at hoop 4 on the top. So we've done it, and we can start stitching again. And that was so good to learn, because I had left my machine on after recording that second video because I didn't really know that this was a possibility. And then I realized after a while that when it's asking you if you want to advance to the next hoop and you don't answer it, the screensaver doesn't work. So the lights stay on, and I didn't like that. I didn't like leaving my machine on. So I turned it off because I knew it was saved. And I just kind of knew there's got to be some way to go back to this, you know, the hoop that I was in. So that's a biggie for me. Let's see what else. I think that might be it. Just re-emphasizing, when you use this option, make sure you stitch out a full hoop of fabric and make a note of the hoop that you want to start at. And that's it. I think that's all I want to share. So this will be the end of this part of my journey. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful. I'm going to be moving on to another. Actually, what I have to do with this quilt is finish it, square up the edges, and make the binding, sew on the binding, and I'll be done. So that was really good. Really great experience with the Babylock Solaris 3. And if you like this channel, give it a consider subscribing, give it a thumbs up, a like, and make a comment. Let me know what you think. And if you have time, go back and look at those other videos. And I will say goodbye and thank you again for watching.